There is a town in the United States where, in the depths of winter, some residents genuinely go weeks without stepping outside. Not out of fear, not out of illness, but because almost everything the town has to offer, its post office, its police station, its church, its only school connected by tunnel, its 200 and some neighbors, all exist inside the walls of a single building. One tower, one town, and just a few hundred meters away, close enough to see from nearly every window, stands a second tower exactly like it, completely empty, and has been for 60 years. Let's take a closer look. On the western edge of Prince William Sound, in a fjord ringed by some of the steepest, snow-heaviest mountains in coastal Alaska, sits a town that owes its very existence to a decision made in secrecy during the Second World War. Its name is Whittier, and to understand why it looks nothing like any other small American town, you first have to understand that it was never really built to be a town at all. In 1943, the United States Army selected this narrow, hard-to-reach inlet for a very specific reason. Its mountains and the near-constant cloud cover they generated made it almost invisible from the air and difficult to strike, even as it offered a deep, ice-free port connected by rail to Anchorage. First known as Camp Sullivan, the outpost became a critical entry point for American troops and supplies moving through Alaska, its strategic value only growing as the Cold War deepened and Alaska's proximity to the Soviet Union transformed from wartime footnote to permanent military priority. Between 1953 and 1957, the Army Corps of Engineers constructed two massive concrete residential towers here to house military families in a climate few structures anywhere in the country were built to withstand. Only one of those towers, originally called the Hodge Building, was ever successfully converted for long-term residential use. Renamed Begich Towers after an Alaskan congressman who disappeared in a 1972 plane crash, that 14-story structure is today the reason Whittier looks like nothing else in America. When the military eventually withdrew, most of the personnel and their families left with it. But a small number of civilians, accounts suggest around 30, chose to remain in a town built for a garrison on a stretch of coastline still reachable only by boat or a single railroad tunnel blasted through solid mountain rock. What they inherited was not a conventional town at all, but a single, self-contained concrete tower designed to survive a war that had already ended and a climate that had not. Most of Whittier's roughly 270 year-round residents, an ordinary day can genuinely unfold without ever requiring a step outside. Begich Towers is not simply an apartment building. Within its walls sit the town's police department, its only medical clinic, a small grocery store known locally as the Cozy Corner, a post office, a church, a laundromat, and the offices of the city government itself. An elevator ride connects a resident's home to nearly every civic and commercial function the town possesses. Even the town school, standing as a separate structure across the street, is connected to Begich Towers by an underground tunnel, built specifically so that children could reach class without confronting Whittier's brutal winter conditions directly. It is a level of architectural self-sufficiency that would be unusual anywhere, and in a town this remote, functions less as a novelty than a simple necessity. Residents describe a genuine, if unconventional, sense of community that comes from this proximity. Neighbors know each other by floor and apartment number, the way residents of a conventional small town might know each other by street. A teacher who has lived in the tower for years has described it simply as home, a place where everybody knows everybody, and where the practical inconveniences of extreme weather are offset by never truly being far from anyone or anything the town has to offer. It is, by any measure, an unusual way to organize a community. And yet, within Begich Tower's walls, the ordinary rhythms of small-town American life, a shared laundromat conversation, a child's walk to school, a Sunday service, a chat at the grocery counter, continue largely unchanged from how they might unfold in any other town this size, simply compressed, floor by floor, into a single structure. To understand why an entire town would choose to organize itself inside one building, you have to understand exactly what Whittier's climate demands of anyone who lives there. This stretch of Prince William Sound receives, in an average year, more than 20 feet of snow, a figure that places Whittier among the snowiest inhabited places anywhere in the United States. Winds regularly reach 60 miles per hour, funneled and intensified by the surrounding mountains. Rainfall during the milder months is heavy enough that some visitors have half-jokingly called Whittier the wettest city in the country. It is a climate that, in the town's earliest civilian years, made a very simple question urgent. How do you keep a school running, a police department functioning, and a population fed and healthy when stepping outside for even a few minutes at the wrong moment can become genuinely dangerous? The answer the town settled on wasn't a matter of comfort. It was a matter of survival. Rather than scatter separate buildings across a town site that brutal wind and snow would make difficult or dangerous to move between for much of the year, Whittier consolidated. The tower the army had already built became not simply convenient housing, but the load-bearing structure of the town's entire civic and social life. A single, heated, wind-resistant shelter engineered originally to withstand a Cold War posting in one of the most exposed coastal environments in North America, now repurposed to withstand something more mundane and no less demanding, an ordinary Alaskan winter. Because Whittier's mountains offered both shelter from the weather and near total isolation from the outside world. Because of that, the only land route in or out of town runs through a single passage, the Anton Anderson Memorial Tunnel, a 2.5-mile passage blasted directly through Maynard Mountain, shared by both vehicle traffic and the Alaska Railroad. Because that tunnel is narrow enough to accommodate only one lane, Because of that, traffic alternates by direction on a fixed schedule, switching roughly every half hour throughout the day. And because of that same engineering constraint, the tunnel closes entirely each night, typically by around 11 o'clock, a decision that, every single evening, quietly determines who is inside Whittier until morning and who is not. Miss that last opening, whether by 5 minutes or 50, and there is no alternative route, no detour, no way to reach Whittier by road until the tunnel reopens at dawn. Residents describe it not as an inconvenience exactly, but as a kind of quiet, daily discipline the entire town has learned to live by. One that shapes everything from grocery runs to hospital visits to a teenager's curfew. Because of this singular choke point, Whittier's relationship with the outside world has always been one of careful timing rather than free movement. Boat access exists and has historically mattered as much as the tunnel itself, particularly before the passage was widened at the turn of the millennium to accommodate vehicle traffic alongside the train. But for most residents, most of the year, the tunnel's nightly closure is the single fact around which the rest of daily logistics in Whittier are built. For a handful of months, each summer, Whittier transforms into something almost unrecognizable from its winter self. More than 700,000 visitors pass through the town annually, many arriving on cruise ships or day tour boats drawn by Prince William Sound's glaciers, wildlife and fishing. Small shops that stand quiet through winter open their doors. The town's population, only a few hundred through the cold months, can swell temporarily into the thousands on any given summer day. And then, as reliably as the season itself, the visitors leave. The cruise ships stop arriving, the tunnel traffic thins, and Whittier's roughly 270 year-round residents settle back into the rhythm that actually defines the place. The one built not around tourism, but around a single tower standing against an Alaskan winter, exactly as it has for close to 70 years. It is this contrast, repeating every single year, that residents describe as one of the town's most defining and least understood qualities. Whittier is, briefly, one of the busiest small ports in coastal Alaska. And then, for most of the calendar, it is something else entirely. One of the quietest, most self-contained communities in the country, its true population never far from a single set of elevator doors. And since those first 30 or so civilians chose to remain after the military's departure, Whittier has continued, decade after decade, to grow its identity around the very structure that once housed soldiers rather than families. Today's residents include transplants from places as far removed from Alaska's climate as California, Hawaii, and American Samoa. People who arrived for work, for adventure, or simply for a fundamentally different kind of life, and stayed. The town has, in recent years, become something of an unlikely subject of public fascination, its unusual living arrangement drawn into wider conversation through television segments, social media, and the occasional visiting journalist genuinely uncertain what to expect. Some outside observers have called it strange, even unsettling. Long-time residents, almost without exception, describe it differently. Not as isolation, but as a particular, hard-won kind of closeness. One where a 14-story concrete tower has become, against very long odds, something a few hundred people call, without irony, home. The mayor of Whittier, raising his own family inside Begich Towers, has put it about as plainly as the town itself tends to. They don't need the conveniences of a larger city, because between one building and the mountains and water surrounding it, they already have what they came for. But Begich Towers was never the only tower the army built here. And what happened to the other one is a story most visitors to Whittier never hear at all. Rising just a few hundred meters from Begich Towers, visible from nearly every window on the tower's western side, stands a second building, larger even than the one Whittier's residents actually live in, and, for 60 years now, completely empty. Its name is the Buckner Building, named for General Simon Bolivar Buckner Jr., who commanded the defense of Alaska in the early years of the Second World War before being killed in the Battle of Okinawa, the highest-ranking American officer to die at enemy hands anywhere in that war. Construction began in 1949 and finished in 1953, a 275,000 square foot concrete structure built thick enough by design to withstand a bombing raid, engineered to house up to 1,000 soldiers in conditions the Alaskan wilderness outside could not touch. What the army built inside those walls went considerably further than barracks. The Buckner Building earned its own nickname during its active years, the city under one roof, and it earned it honestly. Within its 6 visible floors and an 8th level counting the basement and ventilation floor, soldiers stationed here had access to a small hospital, a 320-seat movie theater, a 4-lane bowling alley, a 6-cell jail, a chapel, a bakery, a barbershop, a library, a radio station, a rifle range, a photography lab, a full commissary, and a cafeteria large enough to feed the entire garrison at once. It was not simply a barracks. It was, in the most literal sense the army could manage, an entire self-contained city poured in concrete, built specifically so that a soldier stationed at the edge of the world would never need to leave the building at all. For a little over a decade, the Buckner Building did exactly what it was built to do. And then, on a Friday afternoon in March of 1964, something happened that no amount of reinforced concrete could fully withstand. On March 27, 1964, the Good Friday earthquake, at magnitude 9.2, the second most powerful earthquake ever recorded anywhere on Earth, struck southern Alaska. The Buckner Building, remarkably, did not collapse. Its walls held. But the quake damaged the structure badly enough and shifted the Army's own strategic priorities decisively enough in the years that followed, that the building was never fully repaired or reoccupied. The power plant that had kept it running continued limping along until 1966. After that, the city under one roof simply stopped. What happened next is, in its own way, as strange as the building's original purpose. Ownership eventually passed to the city of Whittier, which has never had anything close to the resources required either to fully renovate a 275,000 square foot Cold War fortress or to demolish one. The Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation has, at various points, recommended demolition outright, citing extensive asbestos, mold, and structural decay. The city so far has done neither, settling instead for a fence, aggressive prosecution of trespassers, and the slow, patient work of 6 decades of Alaskan weather. Today, nearly every room inside the Buckner Building holds standing water, inches deep across concrete floors originally poured to survive a bomb rather than a bathtub. Graffiti covers corridor after corridor. Locals speak, half seriously, of bears that den inside the building through the winter months, undisturbed by human traffic in a structure built explicitly to house 1,000 of them. It has become, almost by default, one of the most photographed abandoned buildings in the United States, a magnet for urban explorers and dark tourism travelers drawn precisely by the contrast the building embodies. The most ambitious, self-sufficient structure this remote coastline has ever seen, standing empty in full view of the only slightly smaller tower where an entire town still actually lives. Residents of Begich Towers rarely describe the Buckner Building as sinister, whatever outside visitors might project onto it. For most of them, it is simply there, a fixed, familiar shape in the window, a piece of the town's own history left standing rather than torn down. A reminder, if anyone in Whittier needed one, of exactly how easily a self-contained city under one roof can become uninhabitable, and exactly how deliberately the town's actual residents have chosen, every year since, to keep theirs from suffering the same fate. Most towns grow outward, spreading houses and streets across whatever land will hold them, treating distance between neighbors as simply the natural shape a community takes. Whittier took the opposite path twice, and only one of those attempts survived. The Buckner Building and Begich Towers were born from the same military logic, poured from the same concrete formulas, built to solve the same essential problem: how to keep a population safe, warm, and functioning on one of the most exposed coastlines in North America. One of them was abandoned the moment its original purpose ended. The other was inherited by 30 or so civilians willing to make an army barracks into an actual home, and has been kept alive deliberately, choice after choice, for nearly 70 years since. What Whittier understands about shelter in the end is not really about concrete or elevators or a single tunnel that closes at 11 each night. It is that a building only remains a city under one roof for as long as somebody keeps choosing to live in it that way. Begich Towers still stands not because it was built better than its twin. It stands because 270 people, year after year, have kept deciding that it should. If you find meaning in these forgotten coordinates, consider subscribing to the map. Together, we'll keep rescuing these places from the silence of history.